My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer. The mainframe computer.
I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a dozen plus one episodes of Basically a Geek Show. I'm Mike, as always. Here's Jack.
What's up? Dozen plus one. What we're you know, math is bad enough without you fucking it up.
I don't think I fucked anything up per se, but
dozen plus one. My God, man.
Oh well, you know, a baker's dozen, I guess, is the proper term.
Well, you know what? Bakers need to learn how to fucking count.
Yeah, I never got that why a baker's dozen was 13 and not 12. Like, I don't understand why. Whatever. I don't understand bakers. Anyway, let's move on. Let's hit the ground running, as they say. Transformers: Age of Extinction. Spoiler news coming up. If you're a regular listener of us, you know that we don't particularly care to hide spoilers, but if you are listening and you don't want a potential major plot point of Age of Extinction to be ruined for you, skip ahead about 5-10 minutes and just go from there.
Or don't be a pansy and just listen.
Anyway, so some vinyl toys were released for Transformers 4 Age of Extinction. There was a mystery villain silhouette that was later identified as Autobot Drift. So that makes things more interesting now, because we were already trying to figure out how this villain setup would work between Lockdown and Galvatron, and now apparently Drift is going to be a turncoat, I guess? He's going to be a traitor? Which is interesting, an interesting take considering the character's history. But your thoughts?
I've never really thought Drift to be an interesting character, period. I really can't be arsed to care about Drift, even knowing that he could be a turncoat. I don't know, I mean, they did that in Dark of the Moon, and it mattered because it was Sentinel Prime. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I mean, I really don't know what to think. It almost seems like it might be a bit too much because you have Lockdown, you have Galvatron. Do we really need another? It might just be a bit much. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because in the comics where Drift was introduced in the IDW comics, he was at first a Decepticon, and then he became an Autobot. So this looks like it's turning that on its head. Maybe he's a double agent. Maybe he's so far down the rabbit hole he doesn't even know who he works for anymore.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, he's in samurai gear, but he speaks Chinese.
We haven't confirmed that he's the one speaking Chinese.
Well, we haven't confirmed it, but it's, you know, just for the sake of argument, let's say it is, because what I'm about to say doesn't make any fucking sense if it isn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, so maybe that's just the level of his identity crisis.
He's a Cybertronian, dressed as a Japanese samurai, speaking Chinese, who doesn't know if he's an Autobot or a Decepticon.
Yes. And I like to think that he only eats haggis, if he were to eat.
There should be a very touching scene in, like, a rain-soaked alley where he's, like, on his knees looking up at the sky. Who am I?
Yeah, and someone leans out their window, shut the fuck up!
Like, just something happens where great emotional turmoil just causes all of these identity crises that are just been boiling just under the surface all come to a head. He doesn't know what faction he fights for.
some drunk dude from a balcony above just fucking pees on him absently as he's crying in the rain.
Hey, it's the live-action Transformers franchise. Peeing on people is entirely possible.
Yeah, indeed. That's the brave new world in which we exist.
Watch it be Bumblebee who pees on him to close the circle that began in the first Transformers film. Like, the stanza will have been completed.
Indeed.
Yeah, Drift as a Decepticon, I don't know, because when the first inklings of the script for Dark of the Moon were released, not Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, when the first legitimate pieces of news regarding the plot of Age of Extinction came out, it was actually pretty interesting because Drift was described as a former Decepticon seeking to regain his honor as an Autobot, and that would very much be in line with comic book Drift. And if they're actually going that route, is he going to be a Decepticon turned Autobot turned Decepticon? And that's why I kind of did that whole rabbit hole thing, because if that's the case, then he is so far down. I don't even think he knows what he is anymore. He's just he's not even out for himself at this point. He just has so many spy masters that he just doesn't know, man.
Maybe he's just that fickle. Maybe he's just that vapid in the CPU that he just doesn't even, his opinion is altered by the last person whom he heard speak. God forbid he ever listened to Keith Olbermann. But, I had to go there. Maybe he's just that idiotic. Though I would have pegged Bumblebee to be that retarded. But,
no. See, Bumblebee's not that retarded. Bumblebee is retarded in the sense that he's forever loyal to the Autobots. Like, I kind of picture him as sort of Optimus Prime's, retarded pet project. Or, charity case.
Lol.
But, he's gonna be leader in the new TV show, so, woo, I guess. Okay.
Yay, Ghost Whisperer Bumblebee. Seance action.
I wonder if they actually end up doing that in the live-action movie franchise, and just make Bumblebee the leader of the Autobots by, the last movie. By, movie number 6, if he's just the Autobot leader. Because this whole Bumblebee overemphasis started with the live-action movies, so it would be the logical conclusion to just have Bumblebee take over the live-action franchise.
Oh, don't you wish that evil on me, Ricky Bobby? God damn it.
Yeah.
No, if that happens, no, I will not. Well, I may not know, but if it's released as a spoiler that's what happens before that movie comes out, if it comes out, if that happens, I won't see it. I will not.
You're not going to see it, but you're already planning to see Godzilla twice on opening day.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Because Bumblebee is confirmed by reliable sources to not be in Godzilla.
So you think?
Yeah. So far, at least.
Bumblebee just shows up. Hey guys, what's up?
Fuck me, I want my goddamn money back.
I'm small, but I can still have an adventure.
I would like for the only reference in Bumblebee in one of the live action movies to be a 5-minute skit in the credits where Bumblebee is parked in a bad part of town and just gets his fucking wheels stolen.
How would that work? He's got to be pretty rock stupid to just be sit there in car mode and not even bother to defend himself as someone gangs his tires.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's what I'd like to see because that'd be pretty fucking funny.
Alrighty, well, aside from that, filming of the score for Transformers 4 Age of Extinction is underway, and by all accounts, it is a beautiful piece of music, so I look forward to that. The movies have always been one of the live-action film's stronger points, the music has been, in my opinion, so. Yes?
I'm just enjoying you tripping all over your words.
Yes. Yeah. I took a nap today, so my brain's still kind of funny. Whatever. Moving on. What do we got next in the queue, Jack?
Azeroth Choppers. Episode number 3.
More false drama!
Yeah, and what I found to be really hilarious, I mean, okay, we are not, before anyone asks us, why are you covering this stupid shit? That's why we're covering it.
It's stupid shit.
Because it's stupid shit.
Yeah.
And I get, alright, Blizzard's intentions are good, their execution not so much in this case, I don't think, but that aside, so, I'm watching this the other day, and suddenly certain parallels start dawning on me as I watch it. And it just really actually made it pretty funny, probably unintentionally so. Yeah, go on.
Basically, if you take the process that is playing the game World of Warcraft with your friends, and then transfer that experience to the experience of making a motorcycle, that's pretty much what we got. Like, the same little parallel events just sort of popped up.
Yeah. One of the Horde guys ended up leaving while working on the motorcycle because, well, he had a family emergency, quote unquote. So he's off in Outland somewhere and needs a fucking summons.
Yeah.
Just didn't show up to raid at all.
We've had that experience where we've been set to go on a raid, and the one time in particular that I'm thinking of, one of our guild members said he was going to be there, but he was going to be a bit late because he had a family thing to attend to. So we wait. He finally shows up. We're like, okay, then let's go. And then he's like, oh, well, I have to go, do my family thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, at that point it's like, why the fuck did you show up?
Yeah.
Come to the summoning stone of the raid.
Well, his whole thing was he was going to be late, and then because of a family thing,
right.
And then he was late, so we assumed he had done that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and if you're about to have to go do that, why even zone in?
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the Horde guys, he's off somewhere, he's AFK.
Mashed potatoes, probably.
Yeah. One of the Alliance guys is evidently so goddamn incompetent that he's just fucking everything up for everybody. So they've got their fucking,
He threw some sort of, I don't know the ins and outs of making a motorcycle, so I can't remember these terms, but he threw away, something that another person on the Alliance team needed to complete his task. And this rock stupid bastard was like, oh, I just threw that away. I wasn't thinking. Sorry.
Yeah, I bet you he plays a Death Knight. Or if he ever played the game, he plays a Death Knight.
Yeah, if this guy played the game, he would play a Death Knight, and he'd be the guy who, when the tank's trying to put together a controlled pull, he's death gripping shit from all over.
I bet he would be just dandy.
Oh, okay, that's an inside joke. But, he'd be the guy, the tank would be like, okay, I want everyone over here, and I'm just gonna pull a few mobs over here, and then before you know it, DK Dandy over here, Death Knight Dandy over here has, pulled
all of the things.
All of the dungeon, because he's like, death grip all of the things! So, yeah. This guy, if he played WoW, he'd be a Death Knight. No question about it.
And so, for me, what was also really funny is, so, you have these guys who are building the motorcycles, and they're pretty much reliving the WoW experience, except they probably don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Then you got the Blizzard guys. And Paul Jr.'s all like, well, about that bike I was going to show you today. Kinda gonna go ahead and not do that. And, the one dude from, Blizzard, the head Horde guy, he's all like, this whole thing has just been disappointment after disappointment. I'm like, aye, laddie, you're telling me. Fucking, yeah, you don't even know. You don't have half the idea. Fucking.
Well, it's like if you go by the internal storyline logic of this reality show, which I'm convinced is not reality, But if you take everything that's happened on screen at face value, maybe this wouldn't be disappointment after disappointment if you didn't cut the guy's due date in half.
What do you mean? We asked you to build 2 custom bikes in 5 weeks and you're having problems? What the fuck is this?
We just told you that your 10-week project was a 5-week project, and what? Yeah. Oh God. And when I say false drama, okay, so we talked about the one guy on the Alliance team who threw away something that one of his teammates needed. So they do that, and they play it up for drama, like, oh, he just screwed me over, like this project's finished. And then like 2 minutes later, he walks up, he's like, hey, I got you more of that stuff that I accidentally threw out. He's like, oh, okay, cool. So,
and the thing is, Blizzard getting impatient with them. I mean, again, if you take all this garbage at face value, the irony of Blizzard getting upset at someone for a long timetable. I mean, from the company that actually, jokingly has trademarked the word soon.
Yeah. When's the next expansion coming out, Blizzard? Soon.
This from the guys who, when they showed Warlords of Draenor at BlizzCon originally, they were ahead of where they were at the BlizzCon where they showed Pandaria. Mm-hmm. And now somehow they've fallen behind. And what was, originally going to be like a summer release is being pushed back to fall, basically. I mean, not officially they haven't said that, but if you're looking at the writing on the wall, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And, what? What?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Look, okay, I don't like to give Blizzard crap, mostly because what they do is well beyond anything, like, what I can comprehend. Like, game design is just, like, it's wizardry to me. But, so, it's like, so I generally am pretty understanding. It's like, yeah, whatever, whenever you guys say it's done, that's when it's done. But, for them to be impatient at anyone is just fucking mind-boggling. I remember when Wrath of Lich King was winding down, and I had to call Blizzard for some technical reason relating to my account, and so I'm on the phone with Blizzard. I'm on the phone with Blizzard, and we sort all that out. And then just before I go, I'm like, I just figured I'll ask. What the hell? So I ask. So when's Cataclysm coming out? It'll be out when it's out. Well, okay then.
Yeah. Shut your goddamn mouth and play the game we give you.
When we give you it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, what would have been hilarious? Paul, when could we see those bikes? Soon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean? I mean soon.
They'll be ready when they're ready.
Yep. Oh, at the end of the day, though, another reason why we're poking fun at this whole thing, because I think this whole thing's going to be for naught. The Alliance is not winning this. We brought it up before. Horde players, although not as numerous, are more passionate as a rule of thumb and will come out to vote in larger numbers. So the Horde bike, even if it looks like a piece of crap, which it probably will because it's Horde related, they're gonna win this thing because that's just the way that this works. You're not gonna get all the Alliance players to rally because Alliance players were not passionate like that. And I think that's a good thing by and large, but it does mean that we lose out on little things like this.
Well, I don't know, Mike. I mean, let's not be afraid to lampoon ourselves here for a bit. Behind closed doors, you and I are pretty Alliance gung-ho.
No, we are, but we are the exception. We are Horde players with Alliance preferences, essentially. In that we can be, when it comes to the game, we can be very pro-Alliance, in a lot of ways that your average Horde player is pro-Horde. But by and large, like, the majority of Alliance players who make up the majority of the player base are just kind of like, whatever. I mean, we are not.
I like to play pretty night elf.
Exactly. Like, we are, I mean, you and I.
On a mission to civilize.
Yeah, we are on the mission to civilize, but we are fighting a big uphill battle because our own army is full of people who generally don't give a crap. Whereas,
and they show it.
I mean, like, God, I love some of the players, in our guild, past and present, who we've played with, some great guys, great girls. But by and large, could you imagine any of them, like, being arsed to vote in large enough, like, people like that being arsed enough to vote in large enough numbers to swing this for the Alliance?
No.
Yeah. I mean, why vote when we can make 50 more Doctor Who themed alts?
Okay, if Blizzard made voting mandatory in order to log in, probably some Alliance players just would not log in.
I mean, the only other person I can think of who we played would be T. He'd probably be up, if he still played. Wow.
His alts alone could fucking win it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's week 3 of Azeroth Choppers. We will keep you updated weekly. Have they given a timetable of how long this series is supposed to go on? How many episodes?
I don't know. I mean, if they have, I haven't paid attention. I'm guessing since they told him 5 weeks, and the first episode, I guess, maybe doesn't count. I'm thinking maybe 6 episodes, so we might be at the halfway mark, possibly.
Well, if that's true, it means that we should be able to vote soon enough. But before we move on from Azeroth Choppers, something I've been thinking about. By all accounts, faction bias is something that perceptions of faction bias exists on both ends of the spectrum. Alliance players generally think that Blizzard favors the Horde, while Horde players often complain about biases that favor the Alliance. And given that, the short version of that is that nerds are picky and are never happy.
Right.
But what that means is that the winning faction, they're going to get their bike as an in-game mount.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously going to piss off a lot of people, especially because there are rewards towards gathering a certain amount of mounts. So you're essentially having one faction a slight advantage in those achievements. Do you see anything where the loser gets a sort of consolation mount?
I do. What I think is going to happen is the winning bike will be made available free or given out freely. And by say made available, as in you can do something to build it, to get it, something in game without paying real money. And I'm thinking that the other bike will be sold on the Blizzard store.
Okay, I could see that.
Because I don't see Blizzard paying to do all this to only use half of the potential.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what I think.
That is true. That is true. But before we leave World of Warcraft for this week, we have some interesting little tidbits. I'm not sure how these were. I assume they've been.
I'm imagining data mined from the alchemy. It's some information about the quests that we'll be seeing in Warlords of Draenor.
Specifically, it looks like the early quests. They on the Dark Portal, I know from previous press releases and previous announcements that the Warlords of Draenor expansion begin with an assault on the Dark Portal. Apparently, Gul'dan asks for freedom, which you ignore, which is hilarious. Screw that guy, he's an ass.
Yeah, dude, no, you're a douche. I'm not freeing you. You're a total fucking douche.
But then Khadgar agrees to free him. So, so yeah, apparently, you don't free Gul'dan, then you do. Gul'dan, by the way, for those who perhaps aren't as WoW savvy as Jack and I, Gul'dan is the orc who convinces the orcs to become demon-controlled hellbeasts. He's the guy who, in the original timeline at least, convinces the orcs to drink demon's blood.
Yeah. If Garrosh was Orc Hitler, then Gul'dan would probably be, Orc Goebbels?
Yes.
I'd say that's a fair analogy.
Yes. So, after that, into the jungle, a dying prisoner explains rituals. which makes sense because the jungle portion of Draenor, just outside the Dark Portal, is supposed to be home to the Bleeding Hollow clan, which is one of the more vicious and brutal orc clans.
Wow. Bleeding Hollow. Oh my god, that's horrendous.
Oh, come on. No.
Oh my god.
No.
Hey, I'm not the one who put it in the game.
Anyway, you end up destroying the altar. Training grounds. After crossing the bridge, one of your friends blows up the bridge on a suicide mission. Woo!
Yeah, you're so the one blowing up the bridge, Mike. I'm not doing that.
No, we'll get Doc to blow up the bridge.
Okay.
Or Mally.
Yeah, well, tell him there's shit he can decorate with there. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Prison break. Once inside the cave, the door opens, closes behind you. You kill the guards there. You free prisoners. Ner'zhul is here, who he chases you out of the cave. Ner'zhul, in the original timeline, was the first orc to really kind of unify the orcs into the Horde.
And he was the first Lich King.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And he is back, probably sans Lich King powers.
Which, I wouldn't mind if he had them. It'd be nice to kill another Lich King.
No. We didn't even kill the first one, dude. That was all Tyrion Fordring.
Well, true. Right, yeah.
I mean, you and I aren't the ones with the statues.
Indeed. That's 3 of them. Just the poop quest, sir. Just the poop quest.
So it seems as if there's a prison break, there's a chase from the prison, Grom and his army are chasing you. Everything is exploding.
All of the things shall explode.
So, Warlords of Draenor, special guest director Michael Bay.
Indeed.
You get on a ship and sail off to your first real zone. And then, so that seems to be a brief outline of the initial quests when you first cross into the Dark Portal. Of course, after that, Horde players go to the Frostwolf Zone. Alliance players go to the Draenei Temple. Apparently we're going to get some Worgen lore, which is nice, because I play a Worgen, and Worgen tend to be ignored. Even after, Blizzard tells us we take back Orgrimmar, apparently that's soon when we get to take it back.
Yeah, you get to help, King Greymane, King Greymane being the king of the Worgen. You get to help his daughter, go to Walmart and purchase some Frontline.
Yeah, the Plague of Worgen. In Shadowmoon Valley, Tess Greymane works to find a cure for an illness that has stricken some of her people, including her father, King Gen Greymane. So apparently, the Worgen, of course, being werewolves, apparently Gen has the itis.
Yeah, I vote mange, actually.
Gen has mange. Oh,
has mange.
Oh, he's gonna have to wear one of those cone collars.
Yes, I was just about to say that. He's gonna be walking around the fucking cone collars. That'd be awesome. And his whole fucking eye he will be all muffled and shit. It'd be great.
He's gotta wear one of those collars, because if he doesn't, he's just gonna keep scratching it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Fucking awesome. But it'll be okay, because it won't be a collar, it'll be an epic neck piece.
You know what? They need to do that.
That needs to be in game.
It needs to be in game only for Worgen players.
Yes.
It needs to be.
I agree.
You need to be able to get the cone neck piece. I usually spend most of my time, it's actually kind of funny. I tend to leave my character in human mode. I play a Worgen warrior. He tends to stay in human mode most of the time, actually, unless he's in battle. But I'd so walk around Stormwind with that fucking cone.
Well, see, like when in human mode, it could be like, you know how they have the, oh shit, how do I want to describe it? The helm pieces where it comes up like around the face, kinda.
Yeah.
And it looks like all, you know, it could look like that in human mode, like an armored piece or some shit. But then when you go into Worgen mode, cone neck, cone collar.
You know,
totally.
If they put that in, I guarantee you'd see, if they made that a Worgen exclusive thing, you'd see a lot of race changing to Worgen.
That would be awesome. I'd love that.
And then Goldshire is just nothing but like 100 Worgen walking around with stupid cone necks.
Yeah.
Anyway, after that, after the plight of the Worgen, another important quest line we get, Gul'dan shows up at least 3 times in the expansion. The first time is when the player frees him, so the Dark Portal will lose power. After that, both the Horde and Alliance try to capture him. His fate after that isn't yet clear. The Alliance attacks the Shadow Council, that being Gul'dan's cabal of demon-worshipping orcs. The Alliance attacks the Shadow Council in Talador in an attempt to destroy them. The quest here is called The Hero We Need, which is hilarious because I'm a big fan of the Nolan Batman films. He's not the hero we deserve. He's the hero we need. Or, you know, you being the tank we need, but not the tank we deserve.
No, I'm the tank you deserve, just not the tank you need.
Jack here has often been forced to tank against his wishes because other tanks of ours either can't make it, or they just don't exist, or they have mashed potatoes to attend to, so. Later in Talador, both the Horde and Alliance battle the Iron Horde for control of Shatrath. The Alliance quest text implies the two factions are working together. And I can actually buy that the Alliance will be working with the Horde because, you know, we won that whole war that Garrosh started, so they're the junior partner here. So, you know, if Horde wants to tag along as we fight for freedom, all the power to them.
Well, I mean, you know, we probably wouldn't have given them much of a choice, I like to think, lore-wise, that it's kind of almost the degree of like a puppet state kind of thing.
You know, we can use meat shields on the front lines.
De-Garroshification. Yeah.
Oh, later, 6.0 Invasion Opt-Out. May be related to events before the Warlords of Draenor release. I don't know what this is, 6.0 Invasion Opt-Out. As simple as part of the storyline for that pre-expansion pack where they set foundations for the game for the next expansion without releasing the expansion. But it just says 6.0 Invasion Opt-Out. So speculation as to what that is, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the politics of the post-Garrosh world and how that's coming together. But a big thing here are the garrison quests, because the garrisons are a big feature of Warlords of Draenor. It's how personal housing. And it seems as if that setting up a garrison will involve a pretty decent quest chain here. Your garrison is invaded. I'd like to think that it's actually being invaded by kobolds and gnolls.
I was going to say like door-to-door salesman.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes, I was about to say, or Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't want no fucking watchtower.
Oh, that was great. When I was living in London, I was living in an apartment building, had no solicitation right there on the front of it. Well, that didn't stop the Jehovah's Witnesses. They just sent me their Watchtower magazines in the mail.
In Florida, when I lived in Florida, they just fucking leave the fucking things on the porch. My grandmother actually had to come out with a gun and threaten them. And it wasn't like, you know, your hillbilly shotgun kind of deal. Oh no, Granny packed a fucking Smith & Wesson, 357. And She went all fucking Grambo on their asses.
Now, see, this is what is often ignored in the gun control debate that often pops up, in the realm of politics. No one ever really mentions the important role guns play in staving off Jehovah's Witnesses, and that is something that I think we need to take into account, because it's a plight that affects us all, really.
Yeah, I think so. It really can't be overstated enough.
Anyway, after that, there's a Thunderlord invasion. Thunderlord is amassing outside your garrison. That's interesting, because in the last WoW expansion, the current WoW expansion, Mists of Pandaria, there was a boss, a minor antagonist called the Thunder King, and now we've got the Thunderlord. So is the Thunder King back, or is Blizzard just really fucking phoning it in when it comes to their minor antagonists these days?
It's not going to be the Thunder King. I think it's going to be just a fucking
elemental.
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of lightning elemental or some shit, probably.
Oh, come on, Blizzard. We already had the Thunder King. Thunderlord, really? You couldn't think of Thundtron or Bolticus. I don't know.
Big Chief Thunderqueef. Yes!
Come on, Blizzard. We shouldn't have to do this for you. Anyway. We have to bring a ring, slippers, hat, and staff to Chromie, who's a bronze dragon. That makes sense. The bronze dragons would be involved in a plot that involves alternate timelines and time travel. And then we've got some garrison campaigns, which basically just amounts to establishing your garrison, establishing it and maintaining it. Although what is interesting is the totems that bind that quest, apparently you're sent to kill Borgal Doomfist, chieftain of the Blood Maul.
Words.
The Blood Maul, I think, are I want to say they're an ogre clan or tribe that's been fairly prominent. So killing their chieftain, that seems that seems kind of cool. But yeah, those are the quests that we can mine from Warlords of Draenor.
Ogres are really offensive to me.
How are they offensive?
Because when you kill them and they fall over.
Mm-hmm.
You see that they're just wearing this fucking thong.
Yes. And the way that they fall over, their legs are spread out.
Yeah, I personally, I would not shed a tear if for that reason they were removed from the game, period.
Yeah, ogres, they're basically giant fat guys wearing things, and then when you kill them, you get a good crotch shot. But, I don't think they're not going to be removed from the game. I've heard some people say they want ogre as a playable race.
Then you know what? Then eat a lot and wear a thong, preferably in the privacy of your own home. And then you can have the ultimate playing an ogre experience. You can fucking look like one.
Yeah, that's actually one of the suggestions I've heard. If high elves ever get added to the alliance, then people have said the natural balancing act would be ogres for the horde.
Yeah,
it's not like I'd play them anyway. I think they're even more. They turn me off to the horde even more than the orcs do, and the orcs do a pretty good job on their own.
Yeah.
But that is our World of Warcraft talk for the show. What's next, Jack?
Let's take a look here. We have got some, let's see, Spider-Man 2 nonsense.
Yes, yesterday, after work, I was able to catch Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So, what'd you think?
It suffers from villain overload. It's bloated. Character development is rushed, but it's incredibly fun and probably the best Spider-Man movie yet.
Well, I mean, the villain overload thing, well, overload period, hero, villain, whatever, that's kind of a thing.
Yeah. Honestly, there are two movies that got crammed into one here. Because the two main villains in this are Electro and Harry Osborn. Spoilers, he becomes Green Goblin. Which is actually interesting, because Norman Osborn actually dies, like, 20 minutes into the movie. Like, 10, 20 minutes into the movie. Norman Osborn, he's dead. He is dead. He is presented as the amoral bastard who kind of founded Oscorp and started all these Black Ops science projects. But, you know, he is dead. He flatline. And I'll get more to that when I finish this up. But everything that we see in the movie indicates that Norman Osborn is dead and Harry is the one who assumes the Green Goblin mantle. Now, when I say this is two movies crammed into one, the other villain is Electro, and really, this would have worked a lot better if this movie was just dedicated to Electro, and then they maybe introduced Harry and kind of built him up, like, built his descent into the role of the Goblin up, and then gave him his full movie in the next film. Because, as this plays, there are sort of two climaxes in this movie. The Electro plot comes to a head. Electro and Spider-Man have their big battle, and it's over. Like, Spider-Man beats Electro, and then you're like, oh, well, this feels like the end of the movie. But nope. Then Harry shows up in full Goblin mode, and we have another big battle. And that's the thing, because when we see Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin for that final battle, that's the first time we actually see him in full-on Goblin mode. That is the first time we see him in the Goblin armor, on the glider. So, it's rushed, because you're thinking, really, like, the first time we see the Green Goblin is for his final battle?
Well, okay, and I have not seen the movie yet, but I mean, from what I know about it, I mean, Electro's whole beef with Spider-Man is that he didn't remember his name. And maybe they're like, hey, let's not make this Iron Man 3. Because...
Oh, it's so Iron Man 3 for, like, Electro's storyline is basically, Aldrich Killian from Iron Man 3 mixed with Jim Carrey's Riddler.
Cable Guy?
Oh. No, not Cable Guy. No, Riddler from Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Because, okay, it's pathetic, really. Like, you think of maybe just like a guy who's maybe just a bit too obsessed with Spider-Man, you're like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But when they're showing, you know, Max Dillon, which is Electro's name before he becomes Electro, when they're showing Max Dillon in his apartment, like, it crosses that line from just obsessed with Spider-Man to, oh, this is creepy. This is like...
I'm beside you.
Kinda, yeah. Like, he's got a cutout of Spider-Man that he's, like, taped to his bathroom mirror.
Is the mouth cut out?
No. No. But as he's washing his face and, like, brushing his hair, he's like, oh, hi, Spider-Man. So nice of you to show up today. And it's like, God, like, I don't, even an obsessed fan, I don't understand how that person could act this way. But it's there. And then, but yeah, Harry, and again, spoilers, they do the Gwen Stacy dying thing. Gwen Stacy dies at the end of this movie. And...
You know, I really never gave a fuck about Gwen Stacy.
Oh, see, that is heresy to longtime comic fans, because the death of Gwen Stacy at the hands of the Green Goblin in the comics is like the main thing that drives Spider-Man's guilt complex, aside from Uncle Ben getting shot.
I mean, what can I say? I mean, I got a thing for redheads.
Apparently, now here's an interesting thing. MJ was cast in this movie, but her scenes were cut. MJ does not appear in this movie, but by all accounts, she was cast, she filmed scenes, and they just cut them. So, who knows? Maybe they're saving MJ for the next one, feeling that now that Peter's guilt-ridden and single, maybe they can introduce her. But she is not in this movie, even though she was originally planned. But Gwen Stacy dies, and it's an adequate update of her death in the comics, with basically Green Goblin trying to kill her as Spider-Man fights him, and Spider-Man's trying to both fight. He's basically trying to fight the Green Goblin with one hand and save Gwen Stacy with the other, and, well, something's gotta give.
I was going to say an adequate update, I mean, for the modern age would be like if Peter Parker posted Gwen, I will miss you on Facebook, and then so-and-so likes this.
Oh. Yeah. It's actually, her death is actually really well done because they're basically set up, and again, spoilers, but they're in this clock tower. And Spider-Man finally knocks out the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin actually kind of goes out like a pansy. He basically gets thrown against a wall, and then some debris falls on him, and then he's like, my head hurts. But as that happens, Gwen is falling, and Spider-Man dives after her, shoots out some webbing to try to save her, and he gets her just as she hits the ground and bounces up.
She bounces.
She hits the ground, right? She hits the ground, bounces just slightly, the webbing gets her, and, like, but it's done so fast that you're not sure if what you saw, like, just happened. You're like, well, maybe she's okay. Because it all happens so fast, like, you can't be sure if she hit the ground. But then, no, she's dead. She is dead. And it's actually a pretty touching moment because, okay, for all of the rushed characterization on the villain end, for it being bloated with too many plot lines, the one thing that really makes this movie work, well, there are two things that make this movie work, but the main thing that makes it work is the chemistry between Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield. The actors playing Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker really have fantastic chemistry, and you really get a sense that these two really care for each other. And so when she dies, it's really well done. And yeah, their chemistry saves the movie, because otherwise it would kind of just be a bloated mess, but they make it worthwhile. Interestingly enough, they do kind of get, like, the Rhino becomes a villain. And I wouldn't even say this is villain overload, because by the end of the film, what we have is Harry Osborn's in jail, but it's, for doing the whole Green Goblin thing that tends to get one arrested.
It does.
So he's in jail, but the creepy guy from the shadows at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 1, who is sort of like a secret, Osborn kind of, official. It's really not clear what his role is, but he seems to be an Osborn loyalist, as it were. He's essentially helping Harry run Oscorp from prison. And you see the vault at Oscorp. You see that they've got Dr. Octopus's octopus arms. You see they've got the Vulture's winged backpack. And they've got the Rhino armor. So by the end of the film, Harry Osborn's like, who's our first recruit? And it's the Rhino, played by Paul Giamatti, who puts on a fantastically cheesy Russian accent. So, some interesting setup for future movies there at the end. Apparently they want to do a Venom spin-off, so I suspect that Venom's gonna come into play at some point, sooner rather than later. But another thing that really makes this movie work, aside from the relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, is the fact that they really embrace Spider-Man as a wisecracking superhero. And that's something the Tobey Maguire films never really got down. Spider-Man in the Tobey Maguire films never cracked jokes, but cracking jokes is sort of a big thing about Spider-Man. And so this movie captures that perfectly. There's a great scene. He keeps calling Electro Sparkles. And at the end, basically, the big battle with Electro, which feels like it should be the end of the movie, but isn't. Electro is at the power plant for the whole city of New York, and he's draining all the power, and he's like, soon I will have all the power, and I will be a god to them. And Spider-Man just goes, a god named Sparkles?
Nice.
So, very well done in characterizing Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy. Aunt May is very good in this. Sally Fields, continues to hit it out of the park at Aunt May. I thought one of the biggest strengths of the original Spider-Man, the original Amazing Spider-Man, was that Uncle Ben and Aunt May actually seemed like real people and not just old wise people for Peter to get advice from. So they continue that with Aunt May. She's a very real, down-to-earth character, and it really works well. We get a little bit more backstory about Peter's parents. They are dead. They're not coming back.
They dead. They dead, son. They ain't coming back. They dead.
Yeah, no. They died. There's a plane crash and everything. They're not coming. Unless they do that whole stupid Clone Saga thing and they bring back robot replicas of his parents just to mess with Peter. Like, that was stupid, but I could see them doing it.
Yeah, because it's stupid, most likely.
And then the Green Goblin was behind it the whole time because we don't know how to wrap that plot point up.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's basically The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Despite being bloated and poorly paced in terms of characterization for the villains, I'd still recommend it. The action's good. Harry Osborn, for as little time as he actually spends as the Green Goblin, is actually pretty creepy as the Green Goblin. Electro is, it feels weird because this feels like Electro should be the main villain, but he kind of comes off as just a glorified sidekick to the villain, to Harry Osborn.
I mean, in all honesty, that's what Aldrich Killian should have been to the Mandarin.
Yeah. But it's weird because all the previews, all of the marketing seems to suggest that Electro is the main villain, and in the movie he's even treated as the main villain. Like, between the Green Goblin and Electro by far gets the most screen time, but he still feels like he's playing second fiddle to the Green Goblin. And I want to say that's a bad thing. At the end of the day, it's just a fun enough movie, and the chemistry between the leads is just good enough that it's just fun to watch. Easily the best Spider-Man film out of either of the two Spider-Man series. The first Amazing Spider-Man blew anything Sam Raimi did out of the water. And this...
Well, that's not a very high bar to pass.
No. But this one, I'd say, even exceeds The Amazing Spider-Man. Because The Amazing Spider-Man... it suffered from the fact that The Amazing Spider-Man was trying to tell an origin story that we were already familiar with thanks to the Sam Raimi films. Yeah. Whereas this being the second film in this new rebooted series has more room to sort of be itself because it doesn't have to tell an origin story. It can tell its version of what Spider-Man is, and it really works despite its very noticeable flaws. So definitely go see Amazing Spider-Man 2. Best Spider-Man movie yet. And, if nothing else, you'll get sufficient nightmare fuel because goddamn Harry Osborn as a Green Goblin is creepy.
I'm surprised we're not hearing he's not as good, or, that, Norman didn't play more of a role because of your Willem Dafoe fetish.
Well, he's not played well, Norman isn't William Dafoe in this movie.
I know that, but I'm just saying I'm surprised you didn't segue into some kind of, what, no Willem Dafoe rant.
Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin was the only good thing about the Sam Raimi trilogy. Because he just played it so over the top, like, I'll get you next time, Spider-Man! It's like, oh my god. They put that in a live-action movie. No. Oh yes, thank you for reminding me on that whole Norman Osborn thing, because, okay, this actually kind of threw me through a loop. When early screenings for movie critics of Amazing Spider-Man 2 were aired, it was leaked that an after-credits scene would show the mysterious guy in the shadows who's kind of pulling the strings at Oscorp, that he'd walk up and that they'd have Norman Osborn's head cryogenically frozen like Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And that, like, his eyes would open. Like, apparently, like, the mysterious guy would be like, wake up, Norman, my old friend, and then Norman's eyes would wake up, and then you'd be like, holy shit, Norman Osborn's still alive! Even though he's just a head in a jar now. But, that doesn't happen. In the movies, Norman Osborn's dead in the first 10, 20 minutes. It's all Harry from that point on. And there is an after-credits sequence, but it has nothing to do with the movie. Literally, it has nothing to do with this movie or the Spider-Man franchise in general. They show a brief scene from X-Men Days of Futures Past.
So this movie, this new X-Men movie is going to suck that bad that they've got to promote it in after-credit sequences from non-related movies. Gotcha.
Well, it's really weird because Disney bought Marvel after the Marvel film rights were sort of distributed, Spider-Man and X-Men aren't owned by the movie rights of Spider-Man and X-Men aren't actually owned by Marvel Studios. They're owned by Fox in the case of X-Men and Sony in the case of Spider-Man. Well, you'll notice that still means that Spider-Man and X-Men are owned by different companies. So what the hell is Sony doing promoting a Fox movie? Well, apparently it has to do with the fact that Mark Webb is who's the director of this new Spider-Man trilogy, is under contract at Fox, and part of the deal was that they'd promote X-Men with Spider-Man, and it got really weird because apparently a lot of people were under the impression this meant that they were setting up a Spider-Man X-Men crossover, even that's not happening, because they're owned by two different studios. But it's just so odd, because, you know, we're kind of trained for these after-credit sequences to be related to the franchise for the movie we just watched. And I had heard that they were going to do this whole Norman Osborn is alive after-credit sequence, so I was waiting for that. And instead I just basically got a glorified trailer for X-Men.
So, what, no Spider-Man Futurama crossover?
Norman, well, they have filmed that scene, so I fully expect them to go ahead with Norman Osborn is still a head in a jar plot. And, I honestly don't know if Norman Osborn's ever going to become the Green Goblin, because even if they do bring him back in the form of, you know, his head still alive, I don't know how they make him the Goblin now that they've established Harry as the Green Goblin in this new cinematic universe. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the guy playing Harry Osborn did a pretty good job, actually. So, you know, in my mind, Harry is the new Green Goblin in this new Spider-Man continuity, and they can do whatever they want with Norman, but right now he's either dead or head in a jar. So we'll go from there. We will go from there. But
head in a jar. There's got to be a country song in there somewhere.
Norman Osborn does not seem like the twangy type.
Well, you know.
In fact, during his one scene that we actually got Norman in before he died, he was kind of a dick to Harry. He's like, I never thought the last thing I'd see before I died would be my son and that he'd be disappointing me.
Your mother should have swallowed you.
Yeah. He basically did everything up to that. That's cool. Like, you're Harry Osborn. You get to see your dad one last time before he croaks, and he's like, fuck you!
The only thing that has ever made me cry is thinking about your failure.
And it's kind of funny because they announce, and this is part of the thing that drives Harry to become the Green Goblin, is that the disease that kills Norman is genetic. And so, Harry's gonna get it. And he gives Harry a flash drive before he dies. And the gist of the scene is that flash drive contains all of Norman's life work trying to find a cure for this disease. But the way that Norman explains it to Harry, it's sort of like, I've worked my whole life to try to find a cure and I couldn't do it. Maybe you can, but I doubt it.
You're imbecile.
In the event of your likely failure.
Yeah.
Oh, so no. That's gonna be interesting if they do actually bring Norman back, because Harry's still alive at the end of this, so Harry and Norman can have some quality father-son goblin time and try to work past those issues.
So, speaking of things that are dead, or, well, not dead, or in this case, dead, Wolverine.
Yes, keeping on the topic of Marvel Comics, Wolverine, he's dead.
He dead!
Well, he's not dead yet, but he is dying.
He died. That doesn't sound as good.
They have announced that the death of Wolverine is something that will happen. It is a conclusion of a running arc that they've done where basically Wolverine has lost his mutant ability to heal, and he is being hunted for sport. And this will end with him being... The issue is not out yet, but they did release art for the final panel, apparently, and it shows Wolverine basically beat to all hell, lying dead on a porch somewhere.
Man, the most dangerous game.
Exactly. Marvel hasn't given a reason why they're doing it. However, the consensus among the comic fandom is that in the past 10 years, Wolverine has gotten incredibly overused, overexposed, and overpowerful, and that this is essentially a way to do a soft reset of the character where they can kill him off, and because it's comics, he'll be back in 2 years tops, and when he comes back, they'll be able to, he'll be back in a scaled-down form, and they can kind of reboot Wolverine in a way. That is the reasoning. I know you're a Wolverine fan, Jack, so your thoughts.
I mean, okay, I guess it's good that he's not going to be as retardedly OP as Superman, but at the same time, Wolverine's personality makes it to where I really don't mind if he's retardedly OP like Superman. Superman's just a fucking douche nozzle. Wolverine's an asshole. Yeah. And assholes are way better than douche nozzles. So, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, it's not going to, due to the gotta collect them all thing with the comic books and the frequency with which they're published and the cost thereof, I really don't get much into comics. So this really isn't going to affect me much unless it carries over into, movie timelines, which I kind of don't think they're going to do.
And that's what I find interesting, because comic book series tend to see a spike in sales when a movie comes out that ties into it. Iron Man sales went up, for example, when the first Iron Man movie came out. And these things are pretty, and this is a pretty standard thing that happens in the industry. Well, they're killing Wolverine off, so by the time Days of Futures Past comes out, there's going to be a situation where you have, and because Wolverine will be the main character in Days of Futures Past, you're going to have a lot of non-comic savvy fans of the movie who say, oh, well, maybe I want to read a Wolverine comic. And then they go to their comic shop and they're like, hey, can I have the latest Wolverine comic? And they're like, he died like a week ago, so he's not coming back.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it just seems like an odd time to kill off Wolverine would be a time when interest in his comic books might actually be high.
You know, you would think they could have. I mean, I guess they want it in the most dramatic way possible, and therefore kill him. But you would think they could do something. I mean, again, it's comic books, so they really don't have to. They don't really have very many constraints. I mean, you would think they could have thought of some other way of doing this.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not too worried about it. Captain America died, and he didn't even stay dead for 5 years. So, you know, Wolverine will be back in short order, I suspect. But what a thing that bothered me about it is that, and Marvel did this too when they announced that the Human Torch was dying in a Fantastic Four issue a few years back, is the announcing that characters are going to die ahead of time. Shouldn't that be part of the surprise? Like, you pick up the latest issue of X-Men, and then at the end, holy shit, Wolverine is dead? Like, shouldn't that be the shock that really makes that moment memorable? Like, you don't think it's gonna happen until it happens, and you see it happen? Should be. But it's just gone to the point now where, you know, comic companies are saying, oh no, this guy's gonna die in this issue, be sure to pick it up. It just seems to defeat a lot of good press you get, where if you don't announce it, if it's just a surprise, and then the first few people buy the issue, they read it, and they're like, holy shit, this happens, and then you'd see a huge spike in sales. But you're kind of, I don't know, it seems like you're really causing yourself some potential growth, some potential gains in sales by announcing it beforehand. Because by the time it comes out, people are going to know he's dead, and then maybe people who don't want to read it because they know he's gonna die, there's no point in reading the comic book at this point, because we know Wolverine's dead. That is the only thing of note that's going to happen in this comic, and I didn't even have to buy the comic to know that it happened.
Yeah, and well, I mean, the only thing that I can think of about this is that somewhere someone crunched numbers and determined, well, they can get more money out of it if they drive the sales up in advance and hype it up in advance rather than for sleeper shock value. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, and that's sad because it actually is a disservice to the fiction. It's a disservice to the reader. I mean, I don't mind spoilers. I really don't. But at the same time, there's a difference between a spoiler and the people publishing said fiction saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. There is a difference there. And
when IDW Comics ended their ongoing Transformers line and then split the Transformers comics into two lines, More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise, the final issue of the unified Transformers comic line was called The Death of Optimus Prime. And then Optimus Prime was actually alive at the end, and that was the twist.
Right.
It's gone to the point that when you have an issue saying, this character's gonna die, the surprise is when he doesn't die. I don't know, but then again, I think IDW is more kind of willing to actually explore new ways to make comics interesting, whereas Marvel and DC at this point are sort of locked into the holding pattern, and they're gonna keep that status quo business model going until it no longer proves workable.
Marvel and DC, I kind of, and though, okay, I don't question the commitment of the writers and the artists. I don't question theirs.
Although I'm sure all of DC is still on suicide watch from the Avengers being as successful as it was.
Yeah, probably. The thing is, though, that these writers and the artists and such, the creative forces behind these franchises, they are on leashes from the corporate bigwigs. And those are the people who just really, I don't think, give a fuck about the fiction and the lore and everything.
No, the problem is that they do give a fuck, but the problem is that they give a fuck, but because they're not writers, they can't give a fuck in a way that's actually contributing. Two examples. Two examples. and it's both DC and Marvel, so I'm not picking favorites. Both companies do this stupid shit. In DC, there was a series called 52. And the idea was that it would be an entire year-long, weekly series that basically issue to issue. Widely received, positively received, wide praise across the industry. Everyone loved DC's 52. Except the editors of DC, who commissioned a new series called Countdown, which was going to follow the same structure, only the editors declared that it would be 52 done right. And Countdown is so bad that after it was done, the DC writers immediately wrote it out of continuity.
Well, see, and that's just it. Maybe let me rephrase. It's not a question of not giving a shit. It's a question of them thinking they have creative ideas that matter.
No, exactly.
And they don't.
Exactly the problem.
They're being counters. They're managers. They should not be enforcing creative control except in an oversight to make sure someone doesn't go rogue and do something ungodly stupid. And again, I get it, that's subjective, but still, let the writers write.
No, that's exactly it. The problem of Countdown was that it wasn't written by writers, it was written by editors. And no, when you're an editor, you edit, you don't write. Or that's how it should be. But another example would have been the Clone Saga in Marvel, and a Spider-Man series particularly. Basically what happened was DC actually got a role in the mid-late 90s, and Marvel in the early 90s was almost in early mid-90s filed for bankruptcy. Like, Marvel was in terrible financial shape in the 90s. And they came up with this whole spanning multiple year spanning storyline for Spider-Man called the Clone Saga. And it was originally planned as this one-time thing. And they did it. And it was, positively received by the fan base and by the industry, and people generally liked it. But because it was one of the only hits Marvel had going at the time, the marketing department was given full control over the company to try to salvage it, and the marketing department kept telling the writers to stretch the Clone Saga out to the point that it actually became tedious, repetitive, and just stupid. Because again, you have people who aren't writers dictating story.
Yeah, and that's why I think, IDW, they're not at that point yet. They're not that massive. They're not that bloated yet where, they're letting their writers do the creative force is where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. It's, with the actual writers, not with, the suits and ties, the editors and such. So I think that's why IDW doesn't really seem to suffer from some of the same issues that Marvel and DC are suffering from at the moment. I mean, because right now both of the big two in the comic book industry, they have these movie franchises, and definitely Marvel is coming out ahead in this. I would argue, with the exception of the recent Batman trilogy, but. They still have these movies. That's making most of their money for them right now. Mm-hmm. And IDW doesn't have that. So they actually have to focus on, oh my God, being creative.
Yeah, it's... And another recent thing in DC, they recently rebooted the entire DC universe. The new 52, they really like the number 52, don't they? But, the new 52 new titles, and they basically rebooted every comic book in the DC universe from scratch. And by all accounts, this was an editorial mandate, not a idea that the writers had, because the editors felt that if they rebooted everything, it would get new readers on board, because not so much continuity to have to worry about. And I actually I've read very little of the New 52. I read a few of the Batman books, but from what I've heard from more dedicated DC fans, the New 52 from top to bottom is almost universally terrible.
Nice.
So it's just one of those instances where exactly. They're just they're hamstrung by people who aren't writers, and the writers are sort of doing the legwork for people who shouldn't be having all that much creative input, but they are. And it's gotten to the point now where IDW can say, we're going to kill Optimus Prime issue, and then Optimus Prime survives, and that's the big twist. And it just allows for more freedom, more creativity, and that's sort of the problem that I have with this whole Wolverine thing. I think it would have been more meaningful to the fiction, to the character, if it had just been another issue of X-Men that you picked up, and then at the end, holy shit, Wolverine's dead. I think that would have garnered more goodwill, creativity at least from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it would have, but again, the money, I think, kind of does more for them. I mean, and I get it, they're a business, and, they need to make the money, and they want to make the money, and I get it, but it was the creativity that got them the money to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, stay on the horse that brought you, and keep going, stop fucking with shit, and, the same old.
Well, moving on from there, we've got two movies that we're going to touch on briefly. There's not much news about either of these. It's mostly just casting, but we're gonna talk about it just a bit. The first one would be that the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, apparently his next gig has been lined up. His next acting gig is set. And he will be playing an unannounced role, it hasn't been announced yet, a role in the new rebooted Terminator series.
Yeah. I would like to think that he's actually just going to be playing the Doctor.
Like the Doctor just shows up in the middle of Terminator?
Yes. Yes. And it would still be better than Terminator 3. That's what I would like to see happen, because they've confirmed, they haven't said who, Smith is playing, but they've said who he's not. And he's not playing Kyle Reese, and,
he's not playing John Connor.
Yeah, and he's not playing John Connor. So,
maybe he's playing the Terminator.
That would be awesome. Okay, I've never been the biggest fan of the Terminator franchise. It's never offended me, really. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those I can always just kind of take or leave. So, I mean, if they fuck one up, I don't really get all that butthurt about it. It's like, okay, well, this one sucks more than most of them do, whatever. And I really don't think much about it. So if they had Matt Smith play the Terminator, I would have a pretty damn good laugh and probably rewatch it a couple of times.
I mean, no disrespect to Matt Smith. I actually prefer the 11th Doctor to the 10th Doctor. I prefer him to David Tennant. And I don't have a problem with Matt Smith at all. But...
Yeah, me neither.
But, got to admit, it would be hilarious to see him as the Terminator. He does not have what one would call a Terminator's physique.
Matt Smith in the bow tie.
In the bow tie as the Terminator?
As the Terminator, yes.
No, I'm just imagining them trying to butch him up, like they've got him in like they put him in a black leather jacket and jeans and the sunglasses, and just trying to make him look intimidating, but he just looked goofy.
Pretty much. So I mean, he really, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say he cannot possibly be the Terminator.
It's entirely possible that he's playing a new role that has been created for this rebooted series, because despite their original plans to continue the Terminator series after Terminator Salvation, those have apparently been scrapped, and this new film is being dubbed Terminator Genesis. So, the full reboot, so it's entirely possible that he's playing a character that is not from the previous movies. And, That's probably the most likely thing right now, because I don't see them making him the Terminator. Oh god. That would be funny though. That would be funny.
That would be fucking hilarious. I do agree with you though. I'm thinking it's going to be some new role that they're, bringing in just for this reboot, new character, whatever.
They say he's going to have a bigger role in the second and third films of this new series. So that's what kind of leads me to think it's a new character. He'll probably be introduced, have a minor role here, and then kind of do some more stuff going forward. But nothing much besides what we've just told you. Terminator Genesis. Matt Smith will be in it. Other than that, not much else. Speaking of movies with casting information that we can't say much else about, the main cast for Star Wars Episode VII, Screw Your Childhood, has been announced.
Now, come on. No. Screw Your Childhood. Now, was that already episodes 1 through 3?
Yeah, okay, that is unfair. Yes. The prequels, and ultimately that's why I couldn't be too upset about this whole Disney thing, because it's like, oh look, they can't fuck it up worse than George Lucas already did.
Exactly.
But the reason why I said that here is because this is dealing with more characters from the original trilogy. So it's sort of like, oh, well, I really like, well, at least I could say, oh, well, at least the prequels didn't ruin Han and Luke and Leia. But,
but wait, we're not done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have confidence that Disney can do a better job than Lucas did in terms of a modern Star Wars movie series, but at the same time, the stakes are higher now, I'd think, because we're dealing with those classic characters that managed to escape the prequel shitstorm unscathed. So, it's like, if this new series is good, that's fantastic, but if it's not, now you're dragging Luke, Leia, and Han into the abyss. And on that note, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher will be there, playing Luke, Han, and Leia. Obviously this is going to take place many years after Return of the Jedi to account for the fact that they're all older. Carrie Fisher, out of rehab. Mark Hamill, after a tragic car accident and aging, now looks like a frog. And Harrison Ford, no longer
not giving a shit in Ender's Game.
Yeah. If Ender's Game is any indication, Harrison Ford no longer gives a fuck about anything, and I have a feeling him as Han Solo is just going to be grumpy Harrison Ford sitting there reading his lines, but that'll be about it.
He will still have the script in his hand
as they're filming.
Yes.
Harrison, we could get cue cards for you. Fuck it, I'm not looking up.
Yeah. You people aren't worth it.
But aside from that, Peter Mayhew is playing Chewie, Anthony Daniels C-3PO, and Kenny Baker R2-D2, those of course being the actors who wore those suits and played those parts in all the previous films. The big news are the new actors who we've got. Adam Driver, Domhnall Gleeson, John Boyega, Max von Sydow, Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac. Now, I am going to, cards on the table. Outside of Max von Sydow, I don't know who any of these people are.
Yeah, me neither.
And, that is potentially a good thing, because if they brought in established names to play new characters, and of course they're all going to be playing new characters, we just say, like, for example, oh, that's not so-and-so, that's just Christian Bale, and then, that would perhaps ruin the movie, well, not ruin, but take you out of the immersion a bit. So, getting unknowns, not a bad idea. Max von Sydow is the one I'm interested in because he has a long pedigree of playing really sinister villains. If I had to just based purely on speculation, the information that we have, von Sydow is probably going to be playing some sort of Imperial agent who's probably trying to rebuild the Galactic Empire in some form. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at. That just seems perfect for him. But again, I don't know. But what's interesting is when they introduce these actors, it was sort of a huge casting get-together that included director J.J. Abrams, and they had cast all kind of sitting together. And what's interesting is that Daisy Ridley, she was sitting between Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. And the reason why that is interesting is because Daisy Ridley has a passing resemblance to the character of Jaina Solo, who, in the extended universe of the Star Wars fiction, is the daughter of Han and Leia. So, the fact that she looks like Jaina Solo, the fact that she is sitting in between Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, that's probably the most solid form of speculation we have right now. Is that, and again, I know Disney said they weren't going to use the extended universe stories, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't just take from the bits from it that they feel they want to take. So it's still possible that this would be an entirely new story, but they are using the character of Jaina Solo. So
that would make as good a sense as anything, I suppose. I mean,
my only real criticism about all this is, where the hell is Lando?
I really don't care.
Lando's awesome.
I didn't think so. I thought he was kind of, I don't know, he was just kind of there. Like, whatever.
I mean, Billy D. Williams is awesome. So where's Lando? I want Lando in this. Now, it is worth noting that John Boyega is black, and he is the only black guy on this cast. And if the casting from Star Wars in general is to be believed, Lando Calrissian is the only black man in the galaxy.
Yes.
So it's possible that he's playing Lando's son, which would be unintentionally racist because in such a tremendous way, because it's saying the only black people in this series are Lando Calrissian, his son, and Mace Windu.
I don't see how that would be racist. I mean, okay, because I don't see how it'd be saying that person. I mean, okay, if those characters were the only black characters in the, in the story,
mm-hmm.
then having those be the only black characters in the story, I don't see how that's racist. I mean, unless they just go out of their way to make some kind of fucking Glee diversity clusterfuck, or tone it down by just having fucking, extremely diverse extras or something.
It should be noted that Mace Windu was the only Jedi to have a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, but but how does that correlate into any kind of racism? I mean, purple, big deal. I mean, what's racist about having a black guy with a purple lightsaber? I'm not gonna. In light of the is your inherent racism making you more prone to being able to point out things like this? And me and my innocence, I'm just not seeing it because I'm. In light
of the Donald Sterling controversy, I will decline to comment. But okay. Point being, okay, yeah. For clarity's sake, that was just basically just a joke. The joke for the longest time until the prequel trilogy came out was that Lando Calrissian was the only black man in the galaxy because he was like the only black character, extra or otherwise, in the Star Wars universe. And I just thought it would be unintentionally hilarious if the only other major black character past the prequels ended up being Lando Calrissian's son. Because that would just sort of buy into that little fan notion there. But,
Well, no, because, he would have had to have, fucked a black chick to have, these things, or are we getting to that level of racism where we're just insinuating that certain ethnicities propagate asexually?
We're getting into very uncomfortable territory, so I'm gonna.
I could propagate asexually, but I didn't know anyone else could. That's why I have to make sure to burn my fingernail clippings.
And with that, we're going to take the left turn out of Star Wars territory before this gets really bad.
And then I smear the ashes on my face for camouflage.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 13, the Bar Mitzvah edition of Basically a Geek Show. I'm Mike, for Jack, signing off.
The ashes make great camouflage.
Please hang up and try again.